I believe our history books are nothing but malicious fiction that from a young age give us a warped perspective of our true reality. And I think I can prove it with one example, because you really only need one. You pull on that loose thread and this whole thing starts to unravel. This is the Palace of Science and Culture in Warsaw, Poland. A magnificent structure. Joseph Stalin gave this to the people of Warsaw as a gift. Right from the jump, this building's a logistical nightmare. It's almost 800 feet tall, carved stone up the wazoo, ornate, intricate details everywhere. The story is so stupid. The original plans, they say, was going to be 300 feet tall. They flew a balloon as proof of concept at 300 feet. And then the architect and all the people kept cheering, higher, higher, build it higher. And they did 30 feet at a time until they were almost 800 feet. And the people said, okay, that's enough. And then they built it that tall. Alright, this fellow here in Arizona has something called the solar death ray. He made it himself, it's from an old TV. But look at the heat this thing can generate. It can split stones, I've seen him melt metal, demagnetize magnets, an insane amount of localized heat. And just imagine scaling this up and putting it on an airship. And conceptually, could you melt a building? Because this thought has taken over my mind ever since it was introduced to me. Because all of these ruins look kinda melted to me. And they don't look destructed like a bomb went off necessarily. It just looks like an insane amount of heat was directly applied to them. I love this guy here, our melted reality. He thinks a lot of the mountains around us are just melted buildings, which is a hell of a thought. But look at this. Like, is there any good explanation for this bridge? And who would build like this, right? Who on earth would build into the side of the mountain where it's seamlessly, like, what are we talking about? I've been staring at this video for a long time because it really doesn't make any logical sense why they would build like this. But it does make sense if you think of it being melted. Lucifer. I think there's a bit of a psyop against Lucifer, where again, Lucifer literally means the morning star, the light bringer, weird name to give the devil. And it's this person who questions authority. This person said, are we sure this is right? Are we sure this is just? Are we sure that all this suffering in the world can't be alleviated, right? This old story of Prometheus, who felt pity for all of the pathetic humans who weren't divine at all. And so he brought them fire as a gift. And so this light bringer, this Lucifer type symbol, this serpent in the garden, who says, dude, you can get way closer to divinity than you think. And that God has a very vested interest in Tower of Babbling you. Right on, brother. Good to be with you again.
Yeah, before we start, I just want to apologize. I feel so bad. I think this is, for the people that don't know, this is the second time we record this podcast, and Mr. Jonathan Davidson Hutchins is so kind enough to be with us again.
Yeah, dude, I'm stoked. Honestly, I think I like just thought about everything I said. And I was like, you could have said that better this way, that way. So it's kind of fun to get a second bite out of the apple. I'm looking to really glass half full of this thing. I think we're in for a treat.
Nice, nice. I'm super glad you feel that way because, and then also I think I was just super excited as well that I got to like chat with somebody that has a similar mindset. That
Totally.
I don't think I really dug too much into your past and how you got into this point because you said you were a pastor at one point. Is that what it is?
Correct, man. Youth pastor. Yeah, that was. I think baby cult leader is the very harsh way to put it, but it is the nature of the beast. It's a cult of personality. It's totally like you pay the talent, you listen to the talent. There's petty egos that are really running the show. I don't mean to be disparaging, but it's just people. You know, you can imagine it's messy. And I was definitely in it, I think, for all the right reasons, because it's all I knew. I've had to give myself a lot of grace that I was a very young person swept up in a very, I think, slightly spiritually abusive movement that is just present in a lot of religion, especially evangelical Christianity, where there's even less accreditation. It's kind of just moved by the spirit. So there's not a ton of accountability. And so I just kind of realized how much you can get away with, that you kind of just say stuff in front of people and there's a hypnotizing effect, that you can like control people's emotions by I mean, I say stand-up comedians make people laugh. It's like, yeah, dude, you take 2 drinks, you want to laugh, you're here for a good time. How hard can it be? If you make an old woman cry, that's it's like, and it's just possible. If you dim the lights, you're a proper orator. You can just kind of move mountains with the tongue if you know what you're doing. And I just realized the power that people have, that like listening to one leader, the almighty leader who stands in front and speaks on behalf of God, you can get away with a lot of stuff. It's freaky what a high priest can get away with, you know? And like you can look no further than Mormonism. I always like to make fun of Christians and say, tell me the difference. Like, I know that you think there's a huge difference. To outsiders, there's no difference. You guys all seem like Mormons.
Yeah.
So yeah, so I just said a lot. I'm sure there's a lot we could go off on all these topics.
You said you were young. How old were you when you were doing your job?
Yeah, well, so I was like 16 when I started volunteering, 19 when I started collecting a paycheck, and then I was running 2 youth groups, a middle school and a high school group when I was like 21, 22, 23. I was just married. My wife and I were doing it. It was in the middle of a bad fallout in a church. I've made videos about it. So it's like I went through a bit of a manic episode. Just I traveled the world with my family, came back home and just realized how much everything was the same all over the planet, and how things are different, right? I just got a really fresh perspective in coming back to the same town with the same stale everybody. I think I got a bit of prophet in me. I don't know if someone in my bloodline was rallying against religion. Like, it feels to be in my bones. I just saw a lot of things that I couldn't stand anymore. And I started railing against it because I was a young man when all of this stuff went on. I stepped out, I bowed out, I realized it just wasn't for me. I like saying, too much weight on an unfinished foundation, like a not fully cured foundation. It's a nightmare. Why would you let it cure? Let it cure up. And I think I mean, Hollywood does this, everyone does this. You take young, talented people and you kind of bend them to your will. And I think that there's a lot of, like, I was a great youth pastor. I had a fun time. The kids all loved me. The group was thriving. My boss did everything right by trying to get me to stay, saying he felt like God wanted me to stay, felt like it was the right thing for the kids. And it's like, you're not even meaning to be abusive. You realizing you're just being like, to him, it's the most sincere thing. It's his baby, it's his church, and he would want me to stay. And so, yeah, there was just a lot to unpack and untangle, but it set me on my course. And so I can't say I'm not grateful for it. It taught me 1,001 lessons. And, yeah, so here I am. I think I retained a lot of the youth pastor vibe.
Yeah, you for sure. You're a good freaking. You're able to communicate very very well.
That gift of gab, man. Yeah, I think I was telling you about this last time. Sorry, I got my dog jumping on me.
You're all
We do astrology, and we've just been kind of delving into astrology and the legitimacy of it. And I have my Mercury, which is how you communicate, is in Virgo, and I'm a Virgo. And Mercury's ruled by Virgo. It's how you communicate. And so it's kind of just like I was born with aces, like pocket aces, just when it comes to talking, kind of just set up for it. So yeah, it's what a time to be alive when you can just hit record and your voice can go out. I was thinking all these like these traveling salesmen, like having to do so much to get an audience, and it's never been easier now.
well. There's two different perspectives with that, right? It's easier, but there's so much more competition now at the same time.
Correct.
So I
Right.
always had that okay, it is easier because you literally have the world in your hands, but at the same time, there's so much competition out there that anybody can at the same time press record and just publish whatever they want, even if it's nonsense type of content out there.
Right.
So
Well, and like it's so funny that you say that, man, because I think that's what I'm realizing, especially with this, if not to be too abrupt of a segue, but with this Tartaria stuff, I'm realizing it's a fertile field. There's 1,000 buildings that have not been examined, that there's 1,000 bullshit stories that have not been deciphered, have not been broken down, critically analyzed. And there's not that many people doing it, like a painfully small number. On TikTok, I do hashtag Tartaria, and right now it's at 57,000 hashtags, 57,000.4. I know because I tag it every time, and it goes up about 100 a day. It's like,
wow.
is there just 100 of us making content? That's crazy. Why is it not 1,000 times that? And I think it's why, like, I've already met with like an insane amount of success already. The fact 25,000 people follow me is so bananas. Like, I'm so delighted that we're all talking about the buildings, that there's just 25,000 people who are like, wait, what are these stories about how these hammer and chisel people, these horse and buggy people threw up massive 10-story stone buildings that look perfect, that are opulent, that have electricity built into the wall? What are we talking about?
Yeah.
There's a lot of answers I want, and that these history books are just so paper thin, and they yada yada past all the construction.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And you know what? When I see these buildings, they almost have a gothic look to them, right?
Yes,
And it's just some of these they look like castles or gothic, and then some of them are just so beautiful. Just
so beautiful.
yeah, amazing. And then last time we kind of touched on it, and I do want to bring up some of those videos that some of the symbolism they have in these buildings are even healing because of the frequency they're putting into the design of the buildings.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. They're obviously incredibly intentional buildings, and then to say it's a post office is so laughable.
Oh,
The
I,
sacred geometry all over these things carved in stone, and this is where you collect social security checks, and yet everyone's really interested in the social security check, right? You're there to mail a postage stamp. You're not asking that many questions, and I think that's the part, I think we were talking about this last time, is so unnerving, is how right on our faces all of this is, that it's been there the whole time. Why are people just now talking about it? I've asked myself that question. Why am I just now talking about this?
oh,
And
okay.
I was talking, oh yeah, please, no, jump in.
So I was gonna say perfect segue. Okay, so you did your being a youth pastor. Then was there something that kind of stopped you from doing that in the sense that maybe you don't believe into religion as much?
It's a great question, dude. There was a lot to deconstruct. And what I realized is that, like, I had made a mess in a lot of ways, inadvertently, the way my predecessors had made messes, the way that I was looking around, and I just saw what a mess of human interaction this was. When one person claims to speak on behalf of God, to speak with authority in order to control others, it's a problem every time, because then people take sides, it gets political, you start making little small in groups and factions, and it's humanity on a microcosm. Like, again, grateful for all these lessons, because I understand what the president is. It's essentially a head pastor. He's ultimately in charge of this building. He did not build it. He's not in charge of locking it up. He's just there of, like, keeping everyone together, and people want to come and gather in this building. And so what I realized is that, like, people believe all kinds of fucking things, ridiculous things, things that make no sense. And we kind of just, like, whistle past that, that there's people living in complete fantasy lands. I don't mean to pick on Mormons, but it's like, guys, like Joseph Smith in the 1800s got this. He was shot in Arkansas. He died in a jail cell. Brigham Young's a polygamist. How many skeletons do you want? And you realize what people are actually attached to is the community, is the lifestyle, is the tradition, is these beautiful buildings. You realize that there's things that are precious to people, and that no amount of your words can break them from that. That they are so in love, maybe not even in love, they are so used to their lives that, like, I had a philosophy teacher, and he said, outside of religion and a hit to the head, no one changes their mind.
Yeah.
That people are stubborn creatures, and and I think especially that somebody said this sinister line, but you show me the child, I'll show you the man. I think it was a torturer. And it's like, or a public educator, I'm not sure. But, like, all of our kids go to public school and get indoctrinated by, we all know, admittedly, Rockefellerian Institute curriculum. And yet it happens. The youngest, like, when people are their most vulnerable, they get their head full of the most bullshit. I don't know. I doubt I've definitely talked to some people about this, but did you watch 9/11 happen on camera?
Yeah, we briefly touched on it last time, and
Right.
that was kind of my awakening to like start digging into a lot of different other conspiracies and other ideologies, and
Right.
I was in school, middle school, when that incident happened, and I think they even put it on the news for us on TV. And once when we first watched it, we at that point you trust the news, you start watching that, but
Right.
I think it was a group of people that they were actually, because at that time there was, I think the internet was just starting or whatnot, but people were actually printing out CDs or DVDs so they could
Mm,
spread even more. And when I started watching a lot of these videos online, I was like, what the heck? None of this makes sense. And that's when I started
right.
getting all this awakening of that should you really trust everything you see or not?
Well, and it's so funny too, of like you think of like these conspiracy theorists, they really kind of are the light bringers, that they're these flame holders, that they pass it on one CD at a time, right? This flame of truth. Like things, how did building 7 fall? What are we talking? That was a controlled demolition.
Yeah.
You all saw it. It was recorded, and yet, but again, to go back to like this hypnotic spell, somebody once said that they don't believe in God. It was a cynical fellow. He said, "I don't believe in God. I just believe in hypnotism," because people are so easy to hypnotize. You make someone feel stressed, uncertain, and then give them a path out. 9 out of 10 people take that path. It's like salesman tactics 101, lawyer stuff. It's like all mafioso tactics of hypnotism. And like you get traumatized. Nobody knows what to do. Everybody's stressed. Everyone's in a panic. And you say Iraq and Afghanistan. And what do you know? Raytheon now has a guaranteed budget for a decade. And it's that easy. Like, and so if you're a psychopath and you see 3,000 lives, infinite money, I'm going to do that deal every single time. And it's like, and that's where, like, I think, especially a lot of conspiracy theorists, you don't want to get locked in on one thing. I think so many conspiracy folks wisely try to keep pulling back and say, but why? Why would this? Why now? And like you start looking at like they start making opioids. All of the opium fields are in Afghanistan. They cause a false flag to push through the sorry, just a second. My
Yeah.
silly dog is running nuts.
Well, you're fine.
But you pass through the Patriot Act, and then you also get the Sackler family gets infinite opium secured by U.S. foreign troops. Like that is the deal of all deals. And you start seeing that there's converging interest. And that's what I've been really paying attention to is like what is convenient for everybody who I don't think are very good people, and how are they all conspiring together in order to pull the wool over everyone, because at some point it is a pyramid scheme, and you can't really like Andrew Tate, he's like he makes a lot of money selling courses on how to sell courses, and it's like that is just the inherent pyramid scheme. I think of so much of governance is you're trying to just pyramid scheme your way into legitimacy of how to control somebody, how to tell somebody else what to do, how to get that elevated position in this church, this small body of believers, right? This Church of America, this body of believers who holds all of these things sacred. Who gets to be top dog? Who gets to have a place of influence? And I think it's just a big social club. That George Carlin thing. It's the big club. You're not in it. And I think it's as simple as the many versus the few. And again, to bring it all back to Tartaria, I think that is the smoking gun of smoking guns,
Mm.
pointing to their illegitimacy, that they are nothing but paper tigers who threaten you with lawsuits and then bribe soldiers to commit violence against you, which again, the money is worthless. If they were all righteous, just people, you shouldn't be able to pay somebody to do violence against somebody else.
Agree.
And yet that is the law of the land everywhere in our international world. You pay people or violence happens,
Freaking.
and that's so uncivilized. That's okay. Sorry, I said a lot.
Yeah, no, freaking crazy, right? I think when you were saying all of this, there was one. I think it's oh man, you might know it. It's something about like creating chaos control. Oh, man, how is it? I just saw it. It's one of I think it's a Masonist quote. Controlled
Mm,
chaos, or I literally just saw a video of it that pretty much they'll create the chaos and they'll solve it, and so they look like the heroes, but in reality, they were the ones that caused it themselves. Okay.
of course, it's right, and I think it's an ancient practice of control.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Eh,
So, oh, go ahead.
no, no, no. Please.
Okay, so in your words, because a lot of your videos, so people don't know, and I'll show you your profile here in a second. But a lot of people don't know, or probably haven't even heard of the Tartarian Empire. In your words, how would you describe, or who is this Tartarian Empire?
A great question. So, just a little backstory. I'll say it from both sides because there's genuine true believers that think the Tartarians were essentially the Atlanteans, that they had control over everything. It was this life had never been easier under Tartarian rule. And then in Asia, there are old maps that show the Tartar Empire and the Tartarian Empire on the oldest maps. And it's most of Asia. It's where Russia now is, parts of China. And I personally, I don't know. I have delved into it so much, I really don't know. I use Tartaria as a catch-all for anyone questioning the legitimacy of the buildings and the narrative surrounding the age of the buildings, and just anyone really questioning mainstream anthropology, archaeology, anyone who has really dissident thoughts. I just put in the Tartaria realm. But what a lot of them have in common is this belief in much, much more advanced cultures. It might like in advanced civilizations, potentially the same species. I think probably the same species. I think these were just humans who had not been North Korea'd. I think we are all currently humans who are being a little bit North Korea'd, and that if we're not, we have no idea how high we can reach. I think the human species right now is being incredibly artificially nerfed by malicious overlords. And there's people who believe that this was not so even a short while ago. Within the last 200, 250 years, we were much more advanced, and that something happened. A great cataclysm happened called the mud floods. A lot of people refer to it as the mud floods, which again, I think any flood, it would be natural that there would be mud. So I don't even know if we have to call it the mud flood. It's just a flood, right? It just flooded and there happens to be mud after a flood. And so these great floods happen, and what a lot of people are onto now is meltology, that a lot of these old ruins look like they were melted, like mysteriously so. A lot of melted buildings, and a lot of buildings that are built into like melted hillsides. It looks like lava and like architecture merge, Minas Tirith style. It's like, what the hell is that? There is nothing in our history books that points to anything like that ever happening. Like, this isn't Pompeii. This is in the middle of the Utah woods, and there's this melted building right there. And so some people are saying, what happened? There's a lot of theories. I personally think it's as easy as getting a magnifying glass, putting it on an airship, going over a building and zapping it. But a lot of people think there was enormous, enormous electrical storms.
Yeah.
Electrical storms that melted tons of ice, therefore getting all of the flood water, melted ice incredibly rapidly. So you'd have massive floods that would totally wipe people out. And the only people who survived, presumably, are the people who knew about it, who would be able to hide, to seek shelter, and then come out and rewrite the narrative from the ashes, Fallout style.
I think you have this video right here, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but check this out. I think it's this
Yeah.
right here. Let me see here on the left.
Oh, is that the meltology one? Yeah, go
Yeah.
for it. That's
Okay,
a great one.
play this one so people can get a visual to pretty much everything you were stating right now.
You guys, check out this structure. Look at how it's eroding. It looks like it's melted, doesn't it? Like it's been in the microwave for a little too long. And that's just very interesting because here are some This is an old public. Oh, yes, check out this structure. Look, I tell you what, Angel, there's a better one if you want. It looks like it's melted.
Which one would it be?
Let me see if I can find you a better one. Scroll up a little bit. Go a little bit further up. Yeah, keep going. I have one right there. Do you see that one with an archway? It's in between the two churches. Yeah, that one. Do that one. That'll be a way better one.
Let's do that one. Quick reminder, we now have a call-in number where you guys can leave us voice messages, video calls. Let us know a story you would want us to share on the podcast, anything you want. The goal is being able to interact with the people that support the channel. Even if you're looking for love, we will find your true love on Nomas podcast. Also, for anyone that is interested on creating your own channel, we have our Amazon storefront linked in the description where you can find all the cameras we use, the microphones, the lights, the equipment where all of our podcasts are recorded to. If you need any help with editing services, we are able to produce your entire podcast, edit your short form content from Instagram Reels, TikToks, etc. You can look at all of our content as reference and we got you covered. And finally, if you want to support the channel, you can leave us a super thanks down below, which will help us tremendously, and we'll make sure to highlight that comment on the upcoming podcast and give you a shout out. Now back to the podcast.
All right, this fellow here in Arizona has something called the solar death ray. He made it himself. It's from an old TV. But look at the heat this thing can generate. It can split stones. I've seen him melt metal, demagnetize magnets, an insane amount of localized heat. And just imagine scaling this up and putting it on an airship. And conceptually, could you melt a building? Because this thought has taken over my mind ever since it was introduced to me. Because all of these ruins look kinda melted to me. And they don't look destructed like a bomb went off necessarily. It just looks like an insane amount of heat was directly applied to them. I love this guy here, our melted reality. He thinks a lot of the mountains around us are just melted buildings, which is a hell of a thought. But look at this. Like, is there any good explanation for this bridge? And who would build like this, right? Who on earth would build into the side of the mountain where it's seamlessly, like, what are we talking about? I've been staring at this video for a long time because it really doesn't make any logical sense why they would build like this. But it does make sense if you think of it being melted. As brain-breaking as that is, I think we are post-apocalyptic. I think we have no idea what happened in our history. And I think we are currently squatting in all of the non-melted, beautiful stone buildings. The most elite of us, right? Our elite society is squatting in these buildings. All of us are living in timber houses or cement apartment complexes. But none of us are in stone palaces. We're not even squatting in the ruins, right? Because archaeologists have claimed.
And there you can see.
Look at that.
All of this is underground right now, right?
It's all underground. And how deep does it go?
Right.
I don't know.
And then I think you've also shown a lot of these buildings in regular society that we walk. I think I've seen some in San Francisco that you're just walking by and you can literally see the window at the street level.
Makes no sense. Who would build like that?
Freaking crazy.
But especially these types of buildings we're talking about are these enormous stones, huge slabs of stone, which again, like up until the Ford F-150, right? That didn't come along for a while. What are you hauling that with? You're doing it with a horse and buggy. And they say that these gold miner prospectors, who, by the way, the gold is 200 miles away. Wow. It's like so far away from San Francisco. Like some of the gold mines are so far away. Some of them are like 50 miles, but it's not right in the backyard. And these people conceptually are getting around with horse and buggies, throwing up stone palaces. It's so, I can't believe we haven't questioned this sooner.
But I think you said it previously. I think you said it perfectly that we've been so programmed that we don't even question any of this. And we just look at things, and then even this past, I think it was Thursday or yesterday actually, I was mentioning, I showed one of the videos from an Indian temple to one of my coworkers, and I told him, look at this amazing structure, right? And he said, oh yeah, that's freaking dope and whatnot. And I'm like, I really, really strongly believe they had some sort of like higher technology or a better understanding how our elements work. And he's so like, well, yeah, but I just think they had more time before. And I think they were literally just chiseling away. Like, bro.
What are you saying right now? And again, dude, maybe it's just the empaths who like pick up on it first. Because I just empathized. Like I worked on like I do construction. I'm a general contractor. I've built buildings. I know how fucking hard it is, how much it sucks to like even try to get wooden walls straight. Like we did a spiral staircase out of wood, and you would have like we needed engineers. You need an engineering degree in order to do this. And yet we're saying these coal miners, right? These people who like a bad winter can take them out are throwing up marble palaces with ornately carved sweeping staircases, again, incorporating sacred geometry. Right. And dude, I think your friend, it's so funny that he says that they had more time. It's like they did not. And like this is what creeps me out, Angel. I double down a lot. I fought with so many family members, strangers, anyone who I can corner. And I was like, but make it like, put yourself in their position. There's no refrigeration, no electricity, no indoor plumbing. What are you doing with your time? You're going to sit there and chisel. That's what you're going to do with your day. That's why you're eating the food and going to bed is to wake up and chisel on a palace for a courthouse. What are you talking about? It's the most like if it was a human, like if you had to make a documentary, you couldn't make a documentary, which is why you have like 5 photos and 2 paragraphs. And that's a history book. That's a whole ass building is like a blurb on Wikipedia for the most magnificent structure you've ever seen, juxtaposed to a new building. And a new building, they will give so many details on anything that has been built, especially any monument, right? You will go down like so much to say about constructed recently and nothing to say about these old buildings.
Right. And I think I watched one of your videos that makes perfect sense, and I had never really put much thought about this, right? But I think you said, okay, let's give them the benefit of the doubt that all these people with, like you said, that are in buggies or whatnot, they were the ones, quote unquote, right? Which I don't believe this, that they built these structures.
Sure.
Yet again, there's no proof of them having houses as beautiful as that, right? So there's
Correct.
just these enormous freaking buildings. What do you think? Let's say if you're a construction worker, you just build this huge building, you would figure that you
Right.
would be building something similar for your own, right?
Correct. Three Little Pig style. Throw up a house real quick. What are you talking about? You're this master mason, this lost art. We don't do it the way we once did. Dude, my joke is always, why does a tombstone cost $5,000? It's like, because it's heavy and hard to carve, obviously. And yet here's a building made of tombstone material. And it's 1,000 times more intricately carved than your tombstone and 1,000 times bigger. Make that make sense. And then you go and look at the tombstones of the time, and they look like shit. All the ones that have 1875 carved on them, where I think that motherfucker probably did die in 1875. Shitty little box. Like, it's a shitty little brick with barely a name carved on it. And yet the palace is right next door. Preposterous.
Yeah. And so going back to my coworker, after I told him that and he said, oh, they chiseled away, he went back into like, oh, did you see the game? So and so he started talking
Yes.
to the coworker, like, bro, you're so like in tune. At times I envy these people, right? Because they're so
I don't.
because I just feel like they don't question anything. They just go
They question nothing.
society and they just
Ugh.
their day to day. But me, my mind is always running and thinking of so many different questions, you know?
Of course. Well, and again, it's probably because you're a little empathetic. And I think that, like, it's hard to lie to empathetic people because I do think you feel all parties involved. And if you're a little bit of a sociopath and you say, oh, they just chiseled all day, like, it just goes into a part of your, like, it's not real. And I was like, what is real to you?
Right.
Is the game real? Like, is the game more real than the chiseled building that you just blased past? And it's like, it must be. And that's fine. Again, I want to have empathy for all involved. But, like, again, I didn't know. And I have no excuse. I've traveled the world. I stood at the Parthenon. I've seen the world, and it did nothing for me. No alarm bells. I was bored. I was distracted. My kids were hungry. I was thinking about lunch. And it's like, dude, people are easy to hypnotize. Back to my original thing. I think, like, if you only give people one option, as again, I think the buildings do all the heavy lifting. Like, them being there is the legitimacy. And then you can kind of say whatever you want, right? You can kind of, like, no one's checking. No one cares. It's just a boring ass plaque that they make as long and boring as possible. And you know what I'm saying? Like, you go around a museum. Why is it so dull? Why are there these, like, asinine descriptions? Why is it so poorly written? Like, there's no flavor. There's no, like, I think you're supposed to be bored out of your mind, lulled to sleep, but kind of a good person if you can remember the 10 facts they give you. And, like, it's people who are up their own asses is, I think, the people who excel in history, that they just remember all the stupid dates, all these red herrings that are put in front of them without asking the bigger questions, like, where are they using the bathroom? And where are they using the bathroom while they carve the marble palace? Because there's no plumbing in this marble palace. It wasn't added till later. Make that make sense.
Right. And this is the video I showed, and we touched on it last time we spoke. But I when I first saw this video, I'm like, this is exactly the video that like I've been looking for, because I strongly believe that back in the days we had some sort of laser technology, some sort of
Yes.
huge 3D printing that we no longer have in current times. So I'm gonna play it right now so people can check it out, and then I want to get your input into this.
This video from India has gone viral. It's all about the fact that visitors to the temple of Veerabhadra noticed a column that This video from India has gone viral. It's all about the fact that visitors to the temple of Veerabhadra noticed a column that does not touch the ground and as if floating in the air. And some people still believe that this column is the lost technology of anti-gravity of ancient people. But in Indian temples, the main mystery are these mysterious mechanisms and their processing, which clearly makes it clear that the ancient people had a technology of laser processing. For example, the author of this video from India claims that he has the secret of his ancestors and knows how these temples were created. Just look at how magnificent and intricate this machining is. And this beauty, which you see on your screens, is called the Kaila.
So that one right there, from my understanding, it was all one piece of stone and it was carved from top to bottom.
Correct. You know the dumb story?
What's that?
For this temple, for why? There was like the guy was sick. This is what the stupid Wikipedia, again, this is 700 AD. They say this happened. The king got sick and the princess or the queen, she vowed that she would carve a temple to him, but she wouldn't eat until top will die before. But then the quick thinking stonemason ran over and carved the top really quick so she could eat. And then they carved the rest of it that way, just for shits and giggles, to make the god happy because the king's stomach felt better. That's the explanation, dude. That's the official history, which, like, I wish they just would have said, we don't know. Fuck if we know. But again, you can't say that, because if you say we don't know, like a true we don't know, then what the fuck don't we know? What do we know? Like, once you pull on one loose thread, it kind of all comes undone, because clearly this is more advanced than where we're at now.
Yeah.
The whole narrative's over. You know, like, what are you holding on to? Like, I don't even know who George Washington is anymore, because all the history seems to be bullshit.
Yeah. All right, let me finish playing this one, and then we'll jump into our thought process with this.
Do it.
Kailash Temple, which is located in India, and its main feature is that it is the most gigantic structure in the world, carved from a single piece of stone that is without the right to make a mistake. But how could ancient people build such a thing? Did they really have more developed technologies in architecture and engineering than we do? This video from India has gone
freaking amazing, right?
Unbelievable.
Insane. And I think we touched on it as well last time, that all that spinning stuff, the spinning components of these structures were spinning. But I think, and you can just confirm or disagree, I want to hear your thoughts on it. But I think, honestly, when these buildings they had some sort of system that they would receive energy or create an energy source, that at one point, when all this electricity was running through the buildings, all the different pieces of the building would be spinning, right? All components would be spinning to create energy, free energy.
Right. Free energy, right. Well, and what type of energy too, like, we really don't. I've heard some people say that they really think the whole point was to make beautiful music, that like music you could really hear, that like the entire earth would vibrate with this music, that it was just peace, like, peace that you could hear, like you had no problems. You didn't want to fight with anybody. You were dreaming big dreams. And it's like, could it be that magical? And it looks magical, I think. Like that's some magic right there.
I think so too, because going back to a lot of these buildings, they put beautiful symbolism that is created with a specific frequency.
Correct.
And I really, really think at that moment in time, I think there was a lot more light beings rather than now. And what I mean about more light beings, I just feel, based on the structure, based on everything that we see, I strongly believe that they were more in tune with the source, right? With the universe.
I agree.
And you can tell everything in the structures. Going back to your feed, and I want to share another one of the videos we touched on last time. I think this is one of the videos that I meant to pick last time, but this one has that symbolism right there of I'm not sure what the actual name of it is, or that symbol is.
What, like, it's almost like a compass rose looking thing, but it's much more intricate.
Right. So I'll play a little bit of your video, and then I'll play the frequency that's supposed to create this symbol.
Perfect.
Cool.
So this is the First Presbyterian Church of Tacoma, Washington, and just look at the detail on this church. Look at those little stars, the carving that it would take. 100 years of Jesus, it says right here in Tacoma. And just what are we dealing with here, people? Because they say this is a church, but this is also a Presbyterian church in Tacoma, Washington. And it looks like that stupid building behind there. It looks nothing like this building. This building is magnificent. And it's strange, right? Because this was one of the first things they had during a conversation. Do you see how this doesn't seem connected to this building at all? They just put up a couple banners. And I'm sure people have been going to church here for the last 100 years. But this doesn't look like any of the other churches around. And notice, it looks like there's been windows that have been bricked in, as in multiple people have occupied this building for different points in time. Why are there peacocks on a First Presbyterian church? Why do you have the Omega sign? Why do you have the Alpha sign? Of course it's about Jesus, but just this is pretty overbuilt for the First Presbyterian church, don't you think? And there's just millions and millions of bricks. And I'm curious, did you want to think, is this necessary? I just think of the church. I was part of a church growing up, and we had a huge remodel, hundreds of thousands of dollars, and nobody broke out the chisels and the hammers, and nobody started making huge towers for the Lord, right? That's what you got for the kids. What does the building have? What did we found here? I don't think they built any of this. There's multiple of those, 4 of them, one on each side, aligned to the cardinal directions. Look at that intricacy. Right, that's another building. This thing just goes on and on. Copper everywhere, tons of brickwork. And I just it seems like we're squatting, does it not? That we weren't the people who built this building. It has been repurposed. And right, like so many things get repurposed. This building, this was not what it was built for. It wasn't built for that little playground right there. They think there's much more afoot here. Because again, this building is amazing. I would want.
And that's what I was talking about. All the old structures, and I think you show them a lot, right? That they had some sort of dome on the top or some sort of cross on top. Even if they're not churches at this current moment, right? And I think they had some sort of copper.
Well, and that's actually exactly it. And I had there's a guy who I really love, John Levi. He flew a drone up to a courthouse in Utah, and they still had a copper wire that was attached to it and ran all the way down the building. They hadn't disconnected it. And so dude, think if you see a lightning storm, there's obviously a tremendous amount of energy in the atmosphere. Yeah. That's just like a pimple ready to pop. But there's that energy constantly up there. And I think they say there's a reason so many of them are almost 300 feet up, 200 feet up. There's just more energy up there that you can pull from a wider area. You can create those torus fields to start collecting all of that energy, where I don't think you can, 2 stories off the ground, which is why so many of them are so tall, especially those intricate spires. It seems like the reason why you do the towers and the spires is to get as tall as possible.
That's a good point.
Oh, no, sorry.
Because all these buildings are huge and they're freaking tall.
Yes.
And
height seems to be a huge part of it. Dude, I just did a video on it is the Palace of Science and Culture that Stalin, the history books say Stalin gave it to the people of Warsaw as a gift, built it in 3 years, 1952 to 1955. Corniest ass construction photos you've ever seen. My wife actually found a photo of it from 1950, which is 2 years before it was started to be built. But I think that might just have been an error. And it's this magnificent, it's twice the size of the Statue of Liberty. It's almost 800 feet in the air, massive stone, just stone skyscraper. And you don't really think of a stone skyscraper. You usually think of a skyscraper as being glass, but some of these stone buildings are hundreds and hundreds of feet in the air. It's dude, that's a stone skyscraper. As unreal as that sounds, they exist. And I was listening to a guy talking about how a lot of the bricks are actually conductive for electricity, so that you can get an enormous amount of energy coming down. And this was actually something I want to say with the meltology, because one guy I really respect, he thinks we're on much more of a grid than we even know. That it's way more gridded out than you could ever imagine, that everything's a grid. And he thinks the grid might have overheated. And that's where a lot of this meltology comes from, because there's a lot of building. It seems like the melt almost comes from the bottom, from the bottom up, as if that there could be an enormous energy surge could fry the whole planet if the whole planet is hooked up to these ley lines. All of this tech is legit. It was understood by these light beings who are much more in tune with this reality and this realm that we're in. I wonder if they could have been a sabotage, right? An EMP of sorts on an enormous level of, like, I think of things that this reset could have been. And I wonder if there was some type of electrical charge. Because I don't know if you've seen, there's really, really fascinating fossilized trees in the deserts of Arizona. Makes no sense, right? It's supposed to fossilized trees, petrified wood, supposed to take millions of years under the earth. But there's these ones that looked like they're almost cut. Like, I mean, they are cut. They're like cut into sections, and they're all crystallized. And so some people think that if it is a living tree that is hit with an enormous amount of heat, what would happen? Like, what would happen to a tree? Yeah, check that out.
Wow.
Like, there are these.
I've never.
And so, what if it was alive? It's like bark is heat resistant. What if it put up its fucking fight as best it could and it just boiled alive in there by an enormous amount of electricity, cooking the whole grid? These are totally just, I'm speculating. I'm just repeating all the stuff I've heard. But like that, I don't think that happened under the earth for millions of years. Like, look at it. It looks like a cut log that got microwaved. And they've done this. They've made microwave rubies. You just get carbon, you get a few other elements, you put it in the microwave, and you can make like dumpster values rubies, like semi-precious gemstones out of just cooking stuff in the microwave.
Wow, this is amazing. I've never heard of this.
It's meltology, dude. It's a whole other side to Tartaria. Everyone talks about the mud floods. Almost no one talks about the meltology of like how did the flooding happen? I think we got cooked. And this is, personally, I'm all over the place with history. I try to keep my head as open as I can because I think our history books have been so cut up. I have no idea what anything is. Again, going back, I have no idea who George Washington is or Jesus. Like, I have no idea who these characters throughout time have been. It's funny, the peacocks on there, that was the symbol for Dionysus. He had peacocks, was one of his. He was also the god of wine and parties, and he was born on December 25th, allegedly, and he had 12 followers as well.
What?
And he could turn water into wine. And you start and then you look into the myth of Mithras, like the cult of Mithras, which predated Jesus, and same deal, 12 disciples, born December 25th. Like, and all of these people are the light bringer. You bring enlightenment. They're kind of these Prometheus type figures that go between God and man. And I think they're all just kind of archetypes for the Ubermensch, that there is divinity within you that needs to be self-actualized. And that's why, like, again, I keep thinking like light beings. I think we are light beings.
We are.
I think that humans can download so much software. And I think, dude, everyone, like your friend, is running on shit software. And I don't think it's his fault. I think there were things like the bells. People talk about the bells. Why'd all the bells get cracked and smelted down? I think that cleanses your software of viruses better than almost anything does. I think that's singing in one of these churches, right? Especially if your voice rocks and everyone took singing classes and you have thousands of people singing in perfect harmony in tune with the buildings. How does that not change everything? How is that not a spiritual ass experience? Like, you go and listen to Taylor Swift and it's a life-changing experience. How much more life-changing thousands of people singing at the perfect frequency in a building that is built for gods, and you all just sing and you all realize that divinity is super doable. I know I get a little preachy, but it's like, it's the implications of these buildings being ancient and related to us are so amazing. I almost like can't even kind of handle it sometimes.
I totally agree. And it's I don't know, frequency and it was so important. And I agree with you saying that we're light beings. I strongly agree. The thing is that to modern times, they don't want us to be light beings. They want to dim down the light, right? And they don't want us to find out the truth. And a lot of these messages get passed on through plant medicine as well.
Right.
In plant medicine, there's these things called Icaros, right? I'm not sure if you heard of what Icaros is, but it's like some pretty much, I guess you can say like your typical like shamanic music, right? Like maybe like a couple rattles, and then you hear all these noises. And what a lot of these shamans do is what under plant medicine, they'll sing icaros, and they'll get messages of these frequencies through plant medicine, right? And so what they'll do is they'll pass on these designs and symbolism that they heard and saw under plant medicine, and they'll make like clothing with it, right? So all these different
Mm,
healing patterns, they'll put it into their clothing for shamanism. I was trying,
wow.
yeah, I was trying to look for some in here. I think it's something like this, right? It's not exactly what I was looking for, but something like this. So whatever design they're getting from their Icaros sounds, they'll put it into their
Right.
clothing, because a lot of these are healing to them. Like for
They're
instance,
transcended. They're transcended patterns. They
yeah,
they downloaded them.
yeah,
That's amazing.
exactly. So all of this is they're getting it from like,
Wow, look at that.
yeah, yeah, and it's some,
That's stunning.
yeah, it truly is. I hope at one point you get to do some plant medicine, because I,
I It's on the list, man. I've done the magic mushrooms. I did Shilajit and another one, and they were both, dude, unique experiences for sure. That's that thing. People like, I don't rush to do plant medicine all the time
yeah,
because it's like it's so life altering. It's like, how many times do I want to re-roll the dice?
yeah,
Like, because you can be a totally new man after plant medicine. My philosophy teacher, I'm sure you should add, ayahuasca to the list of things to change your whole mind.
yeah,
But there's an inherentness to it, that it's like, this is what we are. That it does, I think you saying, getting back to source. I've heard people say that, like, drawing sacred geometry just it does things. I know for me, dude, I just start building Legos. As silly as that sounds, but like, just creating structure, creating order, letting thoughts turn into reality. It's I think it's part of existence. I think that, like, what is a thought? We really don't know. Is it anything more than a fourth D creation wanting to turn into a 3D reality?
right.
And it just is manifesting here, and we get to do that. I think, were we talking about AI at all? Our last conversation?
I think we touched on it a little bit, that AI is now kind of like has people questioning whether or not things are true, uh,
Right.
because it's so realistic nowadays.
So realistic. Well, and one of the disturbing things I've seen, I don't know if you've delved into the world fairs at all. You delved into the world fairs?
Briefly, because of your videos, to be honest.
Oh, okay. Right on.
Yeah,
They're a perplexing thing. They're still going on, as weird as that is. I think that's part of Tartaria. Maybe this is my cross to bear, but like, to show how recent they've been lying is, I think, might be my niche. That, like, I'm getting on lies from the 70s, 80s, really bad documentation. Like, this dictator, I did one on Romania, just unbelievable building, heaviest building in the world. But AI is in real time attacking the hell out of Tartarian creators. I've
really.
gone on Tartarian. Oh, dude, it's like three letters and then a bunch of numbers, and saying, like, I was there, you are wrong, this is misinformation, right? No pictures, no followers, they're bots. And there's just bot storms. Anytime you start, and I've noticed the more recent in history, if I yada yada about the ancient past, they don't care. When you start getting closer and closer to current narratives, they start sending out the bot swarms, which is just very interesting. But I've also seen AI recreate tearing down World Fair buildings, because what they claim is that all of these old world buildings that we see on these, drawings and photographs, that they're all paper mache, that it is, like, it's timber, it's more like sets. They're saying it's like a Hollywood set. It's to be presentable. The stories make no sense, but they never show any of the demolition of these buildings. They're just gone. And then there's conveniently great fires all around the United States, right? The great fires. And then the aftermath of these great fires looks exactly like war damage. And then, what do you know? All the temporary buildings are gone. But I started seeing videos, very strange videos. They weren't quite legit, but they were these paper mache buildings coming down, like chicken wire and like plaster, and it was falling apart. Never seen these videos before. And then suddenly they were appearing in my comments, links to these videos. And I started looking at them. It's like, motherfucker, that's AI. That is 100% artificially generated. And there's little tells. It's just like, but like, if you're not really paying attention, and I worry in a few years, dude, like, I'm wondering if that's going to be the ultimate test, is like the believers and the non-believers, people who are able to wake up to this reality and people who claim to the other narratives. I don't know. I'm very excited because I think there's a bit of a come to Jesus moment, I think, coming where it's like, when do we start getting to like call them squatters? Like, when is it common knowledge that the president's a squatter and that the senators that we all listen to, they're squatting in buildings they don't make? I don't know. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, I think it's still so cutting edge. It hasn't leaked into the mainstream yet.
Right. And I almost feel like people are waking up so much faster now that I
Yes.
feel like AI and all these robots at one point is going to like do the major reset to society and to the civilization that way, because we're getting too close to the truth.
I think so, but at the same time, I think that this baby was ready for anyone to pop. I think they've been waiting for this moment for a long ass time of like, when are people gonna wake up? And I personally believe in divine timing. And I think that like I was born to be 29 in the year 2025. Like I don't know. To me, it seems like a choice I would make if I had any say. I'd want to be here for these times. This is fucking interesting times we are living in. Did you see the pictures underneath the pyramid? Did you get a Has that come up on your feed yet?
Yeah. That there's these some sort of like a huge structure with pillars, almost like, right. And so
Right.
I
Yeah, they did like a LiDAR scan.
right. So I haven't dug into it too much, but my belief, I've always thought that the pyramids were some sort of power plant, right? It only makes
Yes.
sense. But now with the scan, I think there's more proof to that. Not sure if I'm kind of getting to the point of to what they just recently discovered, but I want to say that's something more
I think so.
to my thought process.
It definitely seems like tech. It doesn't seem like a tomb, which is a ridiculous thought. That, and like again, like say no more. The fact that you can be an Egyptologist in 2025 and not be laughed out of the building is so stupid. Like it's so stupid. And yeah, they for sure memorized hieroglyphics, but like you guys, you don't have you ever built anything? Have you ever lifted something off the ground? Like, can you? And that's why, again, I think it comes more as a cover up. That it reads more like a cover up than anything else. That they know, like that these Egyptologists. Have you ever met an Egyptologist? I've never met an Egyptologist. I've like I've never met an anthropologist other than an anthropology college, which again, you only get a B1 if you subscribe to the narrative. And so it's this. I don't know. I think there is an enormous amount of waking up, and I don't think they can put this cat back in the bag.
Mm.
That's just, I'm speaking that into existence. I want that to be true. I don't think the AI is going to work. I think people are waking up. There's too smart, Angel. Like you're here. We're having this conversation, right? No government told us to have this conversation.
But you really think, I don't know, it's kind of hard to tell, right? Because right now a lot of people like I'm a big fanatic of AI at the current moment right now, but it is pretty
Mm,
scary with how everything is just evolving super fast, and it almost
right.
into that we're creating this AI, this other virtual reality. We've gotten multiple people that have done plant medicine have received that message that all of this currently right now, our current life, is a virtual reality within its own.
Mm,
So it's just
right.
to think that there might be different realms or different virtual realities within that reality.
Right. Well, and I think I think we're about ready to go into more of a creative mode, right? I think we've been playing craft survival mode where like you got to build yourself a night every night. And pretty soon it's like, let's go into creative mode. I've done my hard digging. I know how hard it is to get diamond tip tools. Like,
Yeah.
can we go into slightly more creative mode? Because I do have this thought of like, what is way easier to control your reality than you think? Because I have many mystical experiences that when I get into the slipstream of my life and I'm just cruising and I know I'm doing everything right. Here's a funny story. I was driving my kid to school and I'm going and I'm living a slightly pirate life, you know, that I've thrown up the black flag and it's just I don't really respect any current authorities, no matter who they are. I think they're all illegitimate. So I'm living a bit of a maverick lifestyle. I'm thinking about what a maverick I am. And as I pull onto the street, there's a Ford Maverick right in front of me. I'm like, all right. And he turns the same way I turn as we're going to my kid's school. And I'm just behind this Maverick as and I think I'm this Maverick. And we come to a stop sign, and another Maverick crosses this Maverick. Like, I've never seen two fucking Ford Mavericks in my life. It's not that common of a car. As we're driving and we come to a stoplight, I see another Maverick go by. And then I tell this Maverick story to my wife. We're at Target, and I'm telling her about it. And as I pull back into traffic, there's another Maverick at the stop sign, and I'm like right in front of it. I was like, what is happening right now? And again, it's a silly story. It might not even be true, but I think there's this part of like, dude, the universe is so open. There's so many opportunities. It's just floating potential. There's all the Mavericks are driving around. Maybe that guy wanted to go to Target at the same time.
Yeah.
Maybe you wanted to go to Target at the same time. Maybe it just worked out. Maybe if you trust the process, it's going to work out. You do what you think is right. If you're a good person, what are you worried about? And I think that's kind of like the mentality I hope everybody starts to adopt. Because I think if 8 billion people did what they wanted, right? They didn't show up to work and do a job they hated, right? How much hate is in the world because everybody shows up and does a shit job? Like, you're just generating hate. Small, low frequency. What if everybody got a month off? We just all agreed. We'd all save up for a month. We'd buy water. We all took a month off. And that'd be the most life-changing month on the planet if everybody took a fucking vacation together and you just handled shit yourself. You went on walks, hung out with your family, met some neighbors, had a barbecue, rationed for a change, didn't have everything you wanted immediately. Hell, let the power go out. Do a month off, Like, if we did a month without any of the things that our world elites tell us we need, I wonder what a cleanse it would do for people.
Yeah. I'm a strong believer that the answer is in your heart, right?
Right.
Because even as kids, when you haven't been conditioned, you want to do so many things, right? But as you get older,
Right.
all these that light starts to dim down. But I feel like if people go back into their heart within themselves, the answer is there, right? A lot of people,
Correct.
like you were saying, a lot of people do jobs that they don't want to do, right? So every day becomes more and more miserable because they continue doing these things or these tasks that they don't want to
Right.
do it, but they do it for many, many years. Why? Because maybe they need to pay bills, they need to stay afloat, they have a family, so many
Of
different
course.
variables out there. But if people were to do and follow what's in their heart and what their soul, their spirit is telling them that they should be doing, the world would be such a better place.
Completely agree. Well, and my wife and I right now, we're doing a parasite cleanse, us and the kids, because we just got a dog. And they say, if you get a dog, you should probably do a parasite cleanse. And uh, it's like life's already difficult. I don't need any parasites hanging on, stealing my nutrients, coating the inside of my intestines to what, lay more eggs to have more are you fucking get out? Get out immediately.
Yeah.
And I think that like so many parasitic forces are at play in our lives. Right, the DMV, what a nightmare. That could be chill. There's no reason that's not chill. Your boss could be chill. And it's like, dude, I think the infrastructure is permanent. If we just dug down 20 feet into the ground, we would double the real estate in all of these old cities.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? That it's like, I think that like our ancestors left us paradise. And I think the powers that be did their best to destroy it over the last 100 years. I've been kind of rethinking how everything is. And I think it's a huge cracking eggs to make an omelet. I think that their dream is a sad little bunch of omelet people hooked up to a grid, and they had to destroy the old grid in order to justify building a new one and do it with shit infrastructure.
Yeah.
Built-in planned obsolescence so that nothing, like, you're going to have just over broke people for the rest of eternity, that nothing's ever going to stay good. You're always going to have to keep fixing things and fixing things and fixing things. And I think, dude, this is my personal thought. I think they probably know how to make better concrete. Like, just personally, I think like maybe in the Vatican, they know the secret to Roman concrete. And like, they don't teach any of the construction companies this ancient secrets that old humans figured out, And it's like, why? I think that's what the Crusades were for. I think they went to go steal esoteric secrets. Like, there's so many old world secrets in Jerusalem. I could go off on a thought again, dude. I'm a history nerd, so like having to figure out what's fake and real has been a real treat for me. But somebody said follow symbolism, and it seems like everybody is obsessed with a few parts of the world, and I think that's where a lot of these old religions and mystery schools sprang up. And there's ancient secrets in all of those places, like generational truths that have been passed down, like I think the buildings aren't
And
legit, and
and
that there's
what
a
and what do you
con
mean?
job.
And what do you mean by follow symbolism?
Yeah, so okay, here's a very interesting one. Red, white, and blue seem to be colonizing colors, as in all of the colonizers had red, white, and blue, with a few exceptions, a few notable exceptions. And it's just interesting that red, white, and blue is still colonizing colors, right? And what I heard is that the ancient Egyptians were red, white, and blue, and that allegedly Atlantis was also red, white, and blue, and that these are ancient symbols, that this is what the conquering people would use. And so it doesn't really matter if it's America or Britain or Russia. This is a similar type of philosophy. Germany, very interesting, not red, white, and blue. Never was red, white, and blue. And we waged 2 world wars against them. I'm not going to say like we don't have to get into alternative World War II history, but the colors matter. The symbols matter. So, for instance, the snake. St. Patrick was credited with driving all of the snakes out of Ireland, right? In like 300 AD, whenever he went up there. There's not been snakes in Ireland forever, since the Ice Age, right? It's a cold ass little rock. There's no snakes there. And so who were the snakes? The snakes, I believe, were the wise people. They were the druids. They were the people, the astrologers, the people who kept to the old ways, worshipped old gods. They were not monotheists. They were not Christians. And he drove all of them out, drove them underground, stole their ancient buildings that they were potentially squatting in, and squatted in them themselves. And so you follow the snake, and the snake is very interesting because it is the symbol of the Danu people, or the tribe of Dan, the tribes of Israel, right? The 10 tribes of Israel that, I don't know if you're a Bible nerd. I was a youth pastor, so I'm also a Bible nerd. There were 12 tribes. There's a civil war. 10 of them are lost, and 2 of them became Israel, or became Judah, where all Jews are from Judah, where not all Jews are Israelis. Not all Israelis are Jews. If you're an old Israelite, one of the tribes, we're getting really niche, but one of the tribes was the tribe of Dan, and their symbol was the snake. And it's very interesting because a lot of people think that they had red hair, they were fair haired people, they were Vikings. And a lot of people think that the Danes, the Danish people, are from the Danube people. And the Danube River in Russia is named after the tribe of Dan. And then the Irish are also of the tribe of Dan. This is all alt history. Nobody's quite sure if this is true or not. You won't read it in a history book. But like again with Tartaria, it's the griffin, and you can go and you can see all of these griffins, which I think the griffin is very interesting because it's a hybrid, right? It's a hybrid of an eagle and a lion, and both eagles and lions, ancient symbols, right? The Nazis use the eagle, the America uses the eagle, the Romans use the eagles. Not everybody does, and so again, following these symbolism, bears are a great one. Right? Like, why is Russia a bear and America's an eagle? It's like, oh, these are just fucking old symbols, old power elites throwing at it, old civil wars between ancient bloodlines who run the world. And I think that they throw each other against each other in order to keep this narrative going and to keep us divided, and so that they can keep ruling. I think, right? Like I'm working in the dark. That's what's so frustrating. I think being a bit of a dissident, like the documents I wish I could get my hands on,
Oh,
the history books I wish I could read, and it's just you're just having to put all the pieces together yourself.
yeah, I had never heard of. I had seen the griffin, but I didn't know that was the actual name for it displayed. And pretty much, a griffin is a mythical creature often depicted as having a body of a lion and the head of wings of an eagle, and a symbol of power, courage, and prestige. I
Yep,
didn't know that was the name of it. And you
that's a griffin.
and you said this is a lot of symbolism through Tartarian Empire.
Correct. There's which again, not even quite sure what the Tartarian Empire is,
Right.
but it's kind of been associated with the Griffin for sure. It's funny actually in the Capitol building here. It's the Olympia, Washington Capitol building for Washington State. there are huge reliefs of griffins carved into marble in like the George Washington room. And like you're sitting in the George Washington room. You can't go in there, but I zoomed through the window and you could see huge carved griffins out of like on reliefs on a backsplash of marble. And it's like, what are you doing that in Olympia, Washington for? Dude, the symbolism, again, if you follow the symbolism, there's so much in there. And again, it's all, dude, so many rabbit holes to go down. But like, don't pay attention to names and dates. That symbols and colors are you can learn a lot from them.
Yeah, right now that you mentioned like snakes and all that, it's
Yep.
everywhere, right? Like for instance,
Everywhere.
like in the hospital logos, or
Correct.
it's so weird because I think similar logos of these are, I think it's also represented somewhere in the like the Vatican and the
Yeah.
Pope, and it's so weird that the hospital logo would have such, or the medical health logo would have some sort of snakes and wings in there. It just doesn't make sense.
Well, and the snakes and wings are interesting because it's almost more like a DNA strand. So a lot of people associate the wings with Mercury, that this is what he had, which again was the synthesis between God and man, that he could go back and forth between the heavens, kind of like a Jesus character, kind of like a Dionysus character. But did you see that one here, dude? I just food for thought. Type in bronze serpent Moses.
Bronze?
Bronze serpent Moses. Yeah, I don't know if you're a Bible guy, but
A little bit.
this one's crazy. Because I think this is like the origin of it.
Is that right there?
Yeah, dude. Click on any of these. This is some old symbolism. So the story goes that like everybody was disrespecting God, the freed Israelites, when they were liberated from Egypt and they were wandering in the desert. They were whining and bemoaning and saying that God's not good enough. So that all of these poisonous vipers would come and strike people. And what it said is everyone was dying and they cried out for forgiveness and said, please forgive us. And so then it said, come to the center of the camp and gaze upon a crucified snake on a stick. Which again, if you're going back to the Danu people and that this is a political hit job, it's like don't like a crucified Danu on a stick, right? That this is somebody who has this ancient wisdom. And what you said is if you went and you acknowledged that this dead crucified snake on this bronze serpent, it said you were healed. And I think it's very interesting that this has also become our hospital logo, because all ye who come to the center of town and are treated. And it's like, I think this is a false doctrine because, like, again, our hospitals, your third cause of death in America is malpractice. These people have never been good at their jobs. I think every doctor is a bit of a witch doctor. And so I think that this is like, come to the center of town, gaze upon the bronze serpent and be clean. And it's the complete opposite of what an actual which is go be quiet, go retreat, go inward, figure out what is true, figure out what is good. Don't come to this big public ceremony of public guilt and admitting that you admit all of your sins before God. And so again, if you kind of let your brain get loose and look at the symbolism, it probably wasn't actually a bronze serpent on a stick, and people probably weren't dying because of poisonous snakes. I think there's a ton of symbolism and a ton of layered and esoteric understanding to all of these old stories.
So freaking interesting, because snake,
isn't that interesting?
Big time, because the serpent is one of the main animals that you'll see under your plant medicine as well. So freaking odd.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, and dude, it seems like there's a bit of a psyop against the serpent, right? According to the Roman Catholics, which again, the Roman Catholic Bible is what every church reads. It's a derivative of the Roman Catholic Bible. There's no way around that. And they burned people who disagreed with them. They tortured people. I never understand why anybody, myself included, was like, hey, did they ever say sorry? Is this the same book published by the same people that crucified everybody? Anyway, I think there's this part of like, oh my God, dude, I'm so sorry. I lost my train of thought. That's so stupid. What was I talking about?
Fine.
We were talking about the symbolism of the serpent.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry, I found it. That there is a psyop against serpents. That this person, well, and the same with Lucifer. I think there's a bit of a psyop against Lucifer. where again, Lucifer literally means the morning star, the light bringer, weird name to give the devil. And it's this person who questions authority. This person said, are we sure this is right? Are we sure this is just? Are we sure that all this suffering in the world can't be alleviated? Right? This old story of Prometheus, who felt pity for all of the pathetic humans who weren't divine at all. And so he brought them fire as a gift.
Mhm.
And so this light bringer, this Lucifer type symbol, this serpent in the garden, who says, dude, you can get way closer to divinity than you think. And that God has a very vested interest in Tower of Babel in you anytime you guys come together, anytime you guys start to unify, speak on the same language. This jealous God scatters you to the winds. And again, I think it's an allegory of power elites who use religion, who use monotheism, who use no, like, you must swear allegiance to Big Brother, one centralized command. And then all of the people who think that's bullshit, who choose out of their own free will to come together to build the Tower of Babel. I'm inverting a lot of stuff, but there's like, I'm just kind of fucking with Gnostic Christianity,
Right.
which kind of paints Yahweh as the bad guy,
Yeah.
which is a sympathetic
Yeah.
understanding sometimes.
Yeah, you know what? You gave me a different perspective right now because, like you said, if let's say Lucifer, it's some sort of psyop, right? And they painted him in what we know here in society, but in reality, maybe he was a light being, right? Like you said, he was the
Right.
bringer. Maybe that's why the elites are so much into Lucifer that they don't really want society to really know the truth.
Exactly. And so I think there is, I mean, dude, again, these are crafty devils. I think that's one of the things that drives me the most crazy. It was like, I don't think anybody's that in control. I was like, dude, you way underestimate your opponent. They are up your ass on all kinds of things. And yeah, not to despair, but it's like I think there's the psyops run deep. And I think that's actually it's one of the most interesting ones with this Tartarian stuff, is there's a lot of people who think the buildings are kind of evil. They think that Nephilim built them and that these were demons that hate Jesus. And to me, that's such a miss. It's such an enormous miss. It's this really weird, like ultra conservative Christian kind of like prepper types who believe that the earth is flat, which I kind of do, kind of don't. I think we talked about this. I am keeping a very open mind on the shape of our realm because my mind has been blown so many times. I'll believe a lot of things. But there's this kind of concept that they think that these buildings are evil and that they were built by fallen angels and they're a testament to pride. And I just think I think that's ridiculous. I think these are enlightened buildings. I think they serve like they seem like tech. It seems cool as shit. I think that like I can see how evangelical radicalistic like they might go destroy these buildings. I don't know. Like I don't like thinking of where religious zealots go. Um, I know they did that with ISIS. They destroyed a lot of old buildings that we didn't get when we were bombing Iraq. ISIS
Oh,
destroyed a lot of old
that. I
buildings.
heard about that, and that
Terrible.
some sort of, I don't know if you heard about some sort of theory that there was some sort of portal they found over there. Yeah,
I haven't heard this. I'll
yeah,
believe it though.
yeah. They found something like very ancient or some sort of technology from ancients, and
Hell yeah, dude.
they went there for that specific reason because obviously they don't want that to be put out, right? But
Right.
not sure if that's just a theory out there, but that's a story.
I love it, dude. I think that none of these wars are what we think they are. That's what I've really been realizing. Do you want a fascinating? Have you heard of the Field of Jars
No.
in Laos?
Mm-mm.
Oh, dude, they're these giant 30-foot granite jars, enormous jars. You can look it up if you want. It's so wild. Do Field of Jars in Laos. And
Field of what is it called? Field of
it's
jars.
called the Field of Jars. Yeah, Jars.
Uh,
Laos.
okay.
So we never went to war with Laos, but we dropped millions and millions of tons of ordnance on them during the Vietnam War. And the most of it was on this field, blowing up these jars. And these are the ones that are still here. And dude, I'm wondering if this is what the whole point, Vietnam was for,
Wow.
was to go do this. And you can't really walk around. I mean, not. I think there's a lot of reasons. I think they want to kill young Americans. I think they want to do a lot of things. Like they have a lot of ideas. every war is a multi-purpose thing. But dude, they just bombed the shit out of this place, and they bombed all over Laos. And Laos has some very interesting stone artifacts. What are we looking at here? What are these?
I had never heard about this.
No, you've never heard of this.
Megalithic
What in the
jars.
giant fuck are we doing?
Wow, this is.
I'm sure a hammer and chisel, right? That's what everyone wanted to do. It's a land of giants, dude.
Wow, I'm freaking.
What are we talking about right now? We bombed the shit out of it. You can't even walk around. They have like a few parks that you can go to, but there's tons of unexploded ordnance, so no looking around.
Bro, this is huge in comparison to.
They're enormous. What are we talking about? They're made of granite.
So you think part of that was to erase some part of history?
Maybe. I think that's what a lot of these are. I think there's so many of these wars, these bombing runs. Dude, okay, so here's the ordinance we dropped on them. This is what somebody broke it down. They said a 2-ton bomb, right? A bomb that could destroy an apartment complex. It would level a city block. A 2-ton bomb was dropped every 8 minutes.
Wow.
For 9 years on the city of Laos, on the country of Laos, all over the place. That's how many ordnance, like millions and millions of tons of ordnance. It was like to bomb the supply runs for the North Vietnamese. It's like, why don't you drop it on the North fucking Vietnamese? What are you talking about? You drop it on Laos. They never did anything to them. And we bombed the shit out of their country for 9 years. Isn't that wild?
That's freaking wild.
Yeah. Dude, there's so much shit we don't know about. And I think that, like, again, CNN and BBC, Al Jazeera. It's like I feel like I got a grasp. If I could hold on to all the BS that comes out of these news programs, I'll probably feel pretty well informed. You never knew about the field of jar. How old are you, Angel?
36.
You're 36. Don't you think somebody would have mentioned the massive granite jars in Laos? It's way up in the mountains. Who put them there? Who carved those? It's like what's the point of a history book if that exists and no one mentions it?
I had never heard of this before, and I personally like to dig into ancient civilizations, and this is the first thing to this.
There's so much content, dude. There's so much out there. The one that's been blowing my mind the most, even more than that field of jars, is the Romanian Palace of Parliament. It's in Bucharest. It's the heaviest building in the world. It's like, or one of them, it's like 9 billion pounds, like 4.5 million tons, perfectly carved granite, perfectly carved marble. It looks like old world tech. And they said they built it in the 80s, that a dictator built it in the 80s. There's almost no documentation. I watched a 45-minute video in Romanian. And dude, it's a bunch of fucking paper mache. They like made models and they're like, this is to get the plans just right. And then like you walk past like some columns on the ground that they're like, we're making decisions on what we're going to do inside. And then like a few construction photos and that's it. And it's the biggest fucking building in the world in the 80s and there's no documentation. Wow. And dude, I posted that video. It's going pretty viral right now. It's got a little over 500,000 views. And there's so many Romanian people who are like, it's true. I worked on it. I built it from the ground up. And I'm like, no, you didn't. And they're like, my granddad did. My dad did. I'm like, guys, I think you went into a building that you remodeled and you like got it ready for the public. Because like, I think our history is that recent. And like the narrative is that loose and there's that many holes. And I think it's why, again, your friend doesn't ask a single question and he just asks about the sports game. Yeah. The programming works. Yeah. Like there's so many smoking guns all over the place.
Yeah. I'm going to play a video real quick of some of the pretty much frequencies and the symbolism that we see in a lot of these buildings.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Let me...
Studied the cymatic patterns displayed when bells chime.
Look at that.
This is why so many magnificent rose windows resemble cymatic patterns so closely. This is why they look like the petrified pulsations of a star. The entire ceilings of many cathedrals also mirror this sacred cymatic geometry. This is why so many of the structures contain huge bells. Studied the cymatic patterns displayed when bells.
So what's your thought process
Look at
with
that.
all of this? Because sorry, I bring up
Right.
plant medicine again, right? But I
No,
really
please.
really think that all of this is connected, right? That's why
I think you're right.
when you touch into ancient civilizations, that they put it in structures, and when you dive into plant medicine, you see all of this sacred geometry within your um within this dimension, right? So I think all of this is connected. And my belief also is that back in the days, people were more in tune with nature's
Yes.
Wi-Fi and internet, because all the plants, the roots, it's its own internet service.
Of
But we've
course.
lost touch into that. That my belief is that we were able to communicate telepathically, but we've lost all of that. Now we have to rely on modern technology, our phones, our computers. But
Right.
when back in the days, we were all connected with nature and the source.
Dude, I mean, yes, I believe in all of that. There's a crazy story actually. My little son, when he was a baby, I was walking around in the woods. I walk barefoot everywhere. And there was a new part of the trail that had fresh gravel. And he's on my chest like in a baby wearer. And I start stepping on the sharp gravel. And he starts saying, ow, ow, ow. Every time it hurt me, he said, ow, like perfectly without a step. It probably happened half a dozen times. And I said, do you feel that? And he goes, yeah, it hurts. Because I think we're that in tune. And me and my son have a real special connection. But I saw my kid's dream as well. I was deep in meditation, and this was my 4-year-old. And I was deep in meditation, and I was meditating, and I reached out to his third eye chakra with my third eye chakra. I do a lot of Reiki stuff.
Mm.
And like, it's not that I saw it, but like in my mind's eye, I saw, like, I felt like I was being pursued and that I was pursuing. And then I saw like a red dot. There was like a little red dot in the middle of my thing. I was like, did someone teach my kid a violent video game? And then I talked to him about it in the morning, and it was laser tag. He said he was dreaming about laser tag, and I had taken him to play laser tag earlier that week. And I was like, I saw your dream. Like, I saw it in my mind's eye. It was like 40%. You know, like if you're thinking about something, you can think about it. It's like I thought about it. It wasn't me in control. Believe me, don't believe me. I think we're Wi-Fi. I think
Yeah,
people are absolutely Wi-Fi,
we're
and
receptive.
100%, dude. And I don't even know if we are. Oh, hey, Angel, can you give me just a second? I gotta put my kid down. He just woke up. Can you give me 1 second?
Yeah.
All right, cool. All right, what were we saying?
I think we were touching base that we're
Oh,
that
yeah, we're Wi-Fi.
yeah, that nature itself has a Wi-Fi or internet service
Yes,
embedded within nature, right? Um, at the end of the day, we're receptors, right? We're receptors.
yes.
I don't know how you feel about this, but I think at times our ideas and thought process comes from source. And at times, I'm
Right.
not sure if it's happened to you, but when you're showering, when you're receiving water from your shower, from bathing, at times you receive a lot more ideas and messages.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if it's because you're receiving a lot more of your own elements, that you're more in touch with the source, that if you don't take action on those ideas, guess what? Somebody else will take action on them.
Right. It comes and goes. It's just you were but a conduit for this idea to see if you can bring it to life.
Right.
Right. And it's like, and if it doesn't, like, if it's like the wind, it's going to blow to somebody else if it doesn't stick in your ears. Oh, Angel, I'm so sorry to say my kid woke back up. I
No,
thought he was down.
no.
All right. Give me a second.
Yeah.
Sorry, man. Yeah. I think that I have this other thought too, that I do think that there's something that, so I heard a study once that you emit light, that life emits life, that emits light, that you can like do like still photos and strange negatives, and you can see the bioluminescence that that life generates. And these guys, they hooked little mice brains up to this thing, and what they realize is that like mice will pulsate about one light emission per second
Mm.
is about what a mouse puts out. A pig puts out like 40 a second, and humans put out over 1 billion.
Wow.
That like humans are just like, we're generating a ridiculous amount of light that we're emitting like on a you can't see it, but we emit an enormous amount of life force energy. And I think that tracks. I think that there's a lot more to a person, because like there's nothing stopping anyone from being a Gandhi, or a Jesus,
Yeah.
right? Like we all have the hardware to be a Gandhi or a Jesus or a whoever, but you could just be a you, and you have the choice to be a you. And like, dude, you can all generate as much light as the next guy. But again, I think it almost goes more to that software, or better yet, like what winds or you let whisper into your ears, like what ideas take root for some that don't take root for others. And how much agency do you even get? We're getting into the philosophy of it all. But I like what you're talking about, though, like with this resonance, is there seems to be optimum. And it seems that like there's a natural order that when this bell chimes at this frequency, water molecules do this. That seems like facts. It seems like that is just the structure of reality. Is there facts to morality? Is there a structure to morality? And that when you live in a dissonance with morality, that you're a deeply immoral person, everything starts to break apart. And like, to me, what is war if not horrible software for people, right? Like, what is this dissonant feeling in you that you want to blow up an enemy, that you see that as a win? Right? That like building something is inherently a win. You put it up, it doesn't fall down. You did it. Knocking something over, I guess it could be a win. It's a little nihilistic. It's a little mean-spirited. It's definitely easier. It's definitely the easy way out, right? Demoing stuff. I always say that in construction, demo job is like, that's the fun part. That's the easy part. You don't have to be careful. You don't have to be intentional at all. You don't have to remember shit. You put the low skilled laborers on the demo jobs, because building is much harder. To create is so much harder.
Right.
And I think that like these buildings prove to a superiority in craftsmanship that people seem to be enlightened. It seemed like they had great software, that the humans walking around had really, really good software. And I think that we can re-upload that software. I don't think there's anything that's stopping people from becoming much more enlightened. That it's just good ideas. It's good ideas that you let into your mind and you let all the bad ones out.
Yeah, I strongly agree. And to pretty much to wrap this up, I think we're almost close to an hour and 30 minutes. Is there one specific
Perfect.
video from your TikTok that you would want to share with the people? That way, if maybe there's...
I mean, I'm always partial to my most recent. Don't do my most recent. Do the one right next to it. Do you see? There's my most recent, and then that one. Go ahead and cue that one up. I think this says everything I want to say.
This one right here?
Yeah, go nuts.
All right.
Thanks, man. I appreciate this one. I'm trying to say everything in 90 seconds. So we'll do our best.
Check it out.
I believe our history books are nothing but malicious fiction that from a young age give us a warped perspective of our true reality. And I think I can prove it with one example, because you really only need one. You pull on that loose thread and this whole thing starts to unravel. This is the Palace of Science and Culture in Warsaw, Poland. A magnificent structure. Joseph Stalin gave this to the people of Warsaw as a gift. Now, right from the jump, this building's a logistical nightmare. It's almost 800 feet tall, carved stone up the wazoo, ornate, intricate details everywhere. And the story is so stupid. The original plans, they say, was going to be 300 feet tall. They flew a balloon as proof of concept at 300 feet. And then the architect and all the people kept cheering, higher, higher, build it higher. And they did 30 feet at a time until they were almost 800 feet. And the people said, okay, that's enough. And then they built it that tall. What in the Looney Tune logic is that story we're given? This is printed on a page. And then we have some very silly photos, which I think look heavily doctored. They might be a little scale model. It's just the Smithsonian agrees with the balloon story. They'll vouch for Stalin. They'll say, yeah, that building went up exactly the way Stalin said it did. And that's so suspicious to me, because I think internationally, all of the historians are in on it. All of the powers that be, all of the ivory towers agree with each other. They agree with the narrative that horse and buggy people built all of these magnificent structures, or sociopathic dictators threw them up very quickly. Even though none of the other structures that they did look anything like that, right? This doesn't match Soviet brutalism. So I think there are smoking guns all around, and that our history books are literally paper thin. I think the powers that be want us to think that this is the best life has ever been. It's not weird you have to spend 30% of your life just trying to get some sticks and shingles over your head. Call yourself a homeowner. I think permanent infrastructure used to be everywhere, and that so much of it was blown up during these wars, and continues to be blown up right now. I think there's something inherently evil about destruction, especially if there's not a good reason. There's been no good reason for all of these magnificent old world buildings to be torn down, other than wars, and rumors of wars, and planned obsolescence, and we just don't want to live here anymore. Please don't examine your history books and see that there's permanent infrastructure everywhere. Actually, you can even start digging some of it out. Go dig up the pyramids. What do you even know? That could be free energy, dude. That's probably free energy, dude. We're post-apocalyptic as a species, and our history books have been lying to us from the jump. I believe our history books...
Man, you're such freaking amazing.
Does it feel like you watched a documentary? That's what
Yeah.
I'm trying to do, like a 90-second documentary.
You're amazing
And like, 'cause
at these.
oh, dude, thanks. Oh, I'm glowing right now. I got a little Leo moon. I need a ridiculous amount of praise.
Yeah, I know you're amazing. It really is like a mini documentary in 90 seconds.
90-second documentary, dude. I think that was my youth pastor roots. I understood how precious someone's attention was, and that the entire world's trying to grab a hold of that shit. And they'll use tits, and they'll use food, and they'll use, money and status to get that attention. But I think these buildings want our attention. I think they are crying out, right? Jesus said that. He was like, you don't praise me, the stones themselves will cry out. But I think these stone buildings are crying out. They're like, we are not of your silly timelines. That plaque does not represent me. That silly little history museum that you learned all these facts in, it doesn't do him justice. I think that like the yada, yada, yada footnote balloon stories, it's like, how dare you? Look at that thing's 800 feet tall. Who built that? How do we not know? How is it not being used the way it ought to be used? It's such mismanagement of resources, which I feel that from all things. I think these poor Amazon workers, what a mismanagement of human resources. Like these robots can do it, and yet you're making guys not even able to take pee breaks. For what, Jeff? Like, for what? And dude, he blows up so many old world buildings to build Amazon warehouses. And like, if that shouldn't make your blood boil, I don't know what does. That like these soulless apartment complexes go up in place of these old brick buildings because they're run down. They don't even have, like they haven't even updated. They don't even have AC. It's like, dude, all right, I guess. Ay.
But okay, to sum everything up, do you feel
Yeah.
we were way more advanced before, or are we more advanced now?
So this is, I think for the last 1,000 years, we have not been that advanced, but I think that we get close and then knock down, and close and then reset, and then close and reset. I think we're very sophisticated now. I think this microchip shit is next level. I don't think AI was achieved in every generation. I think computers have kind of been like the shit for this past century, and I don't know what the last century was, because I do think they reset the plebs every now and again. Whenever they start getting too much cool tech and like everyone starts problem solving.
Yeah.
But it seems like, I have no idea. It seems like free energy might have been what the last one was all about. They were using all this infrastructure around. I don't know if they built it though. I don't know if the people who built the buildings are the same as the people who built the railroads, right? The railroads seem like a much more straightforward thing, that even if you were squatters and you didn't build any buildings, could the Industrial Revolution have happened with all of these old world building infrastructure, and they got really good at making steel shit? Maybe, like I think that we have kind of excelled in this tech thing. But again, I think 1907 was the time that we got reset. And so I think we have been working like with 1907, like Fallout style, working with 1907 tech and improving upon it since 1907. I really have no idea what was before 1907. I feel pretty safe talking about 1907 and forward, because like you can, there's a lot of documents of everything. Before that, it's a black hole of history where I really have I stand on no firm ground anywhere, which again, I'm more into myths and symbols pre-1907.
I agree. And at the end of the day, we know nothing, right?
We know nothing other than, how good food tastes, how fun it is to talk to people. How fun is it to make a podcast, dude, and talk about forbidden secrets, which like...
And it's incredible. Like, I think we mentioned that at the beginning, that we currently live in incredible times, that we're talking freaking from miles away.
Right.
It's insane.
Incredible, dude. Incredible. Well, Angel, absolute pleasure, man. I love that you're. What is this? So is this 111 still? Are we still
11.
111?
Yes, this
Hell
one is
yeah,
going to
dude.
point up
We
this
st-
coming Wednesday, so I'm super, super stoked.
oh, dude, I have to. I feel like I'm a returning guest now because
Yeah.
we are having an easier conversation.
Yeah, I would love to like be at one point to have you, but talking into one specific subject because I know you're very, very knowledgeable. So
Yeah, I gotta, dude. I've been reading a lot of books. I've been learning a lot of things. I have a great memory too. I think it's like if you're doing a character loadout, I would dump all of into memorization perks. Like, it's just to be able to remember what you've learned is so awesome. Like my poor wife, she doesn't remember a thing she learns, like unless she really cares about it. In one ear, out the other. And I steel trap, lucky
yeah,
duck. I could remember all the nonsense, fake facts.
yeah, we need to have you on also to do your plant ceremony, plant medicine.
Well, yeah, dude, I'd love to talk about that. It'd be great. I think I teased it last time a little bit too about kind of a way to sort of unlock superpowers, which it's like your own latent human abilities and biochemistry. Maybe we shouldn't talk about that one. It's a little inappropriate, but it's very, very interesting stuff. Dude, I'd love to talk about anything. I'm always down for a good conversation.
All right, Mr. Jonathan Davison Hutchins. Thank you so much for, like forgiving me for the first podcast
Oh, stop.
properly, but man, you're someone super super knowledgeable, and just when I reached out to TikTok, I was hoping you said yes, and you did, and now we have this documented. So thank you.
Hell yeah, dude. My pleasure, my treasure, as I say. I'll say this, man. Congrats on 111. That's some stick to itness. I think I told you that last time.
Yeah.
Most people wipe out before they make 20 episodes. So the fact that you've got 111, hell yeah,
Yeah,
brother.
111, and now I'm doing lives every Sunday, and that's gonna be my sixth live tomorrow. So
Okay,
yeah,
right
but
on.
pushing through, man. I really love this. I love just communicating and spreading some sort of knowledge, and hopefully, as long as one person likes my content, I already won.
Dude, it's that Michael Scott line, right? He's like, don't listen to your critics, listen to your fans. And I completely agree. Like, you make it for your fans, you don't make it for your critics.
Yeah.
Right on, dude. Well, absolute pleasure.
Like,
And I'll hopefully talk to you again soon.
talk to you soon, brother. Thank you once.
Cool, man.
All right,
Yep. Bye.
next time.
Hoy no